So this was meant as a sort of portfolio piece. I was planning on putting a little level together and packaging it up so people could play it. But because of some user error, I can't package this or the other portfolio piece I worked on. But I can still play it on my own computer, so I can play through it and do commentary, which I was going to do anyway. So we'll just have to do with that. Also, my main microphone has crapped out on me, and my secondary microphone is now dead. So I am having to record this with webcam audio. So apologies for the audio quality. Okay. So this was meant more as a sort of level design piece to give an idea of my sensibilities when creating a level. So if we play this here, so I'm going to talk about things I did, things I want to do, and things even further out than that because I spent only a week building this. That was intentional. So to give myself a week to work on this. So some of what I want to talk about is things I'd do if I had another week or even longer beyond that. Right off the bat, the art styles from an asset pack that I used, I did not model or animate anything myself because I'm not an animator and I'm still a burgeoning 3D modeler. So yeah, we can look around as you can in any game. And this is just a little overview of the area. But the main area, or the main thing that you're supposed to start with is this. And you'll notice as we approach things, you get the interactable widget that pops up on your screen for when you can interact with things. So let's proceed to interact, and the door opens, and you can close it again. Woohoo! So right off the bat, this space is too large. I ran into an error when I was blocking out this level. I blocked it out using the Unreal Engine blocks, the default primitives that it gives you, and that was my first pass, was just for figuring out the shapes of the levels, or the shapes of the buildings. Then I came in with the asset pack to put in the actual assets. For this first building, I built the building out with the assets, and then I came in with the character and realized I had not had a scale reference, so I built this building, all the buildings, way too big. So thankfully I realized this for the second building and was able to scale it appropriately, but this one is scaled up to be too large. So I would actually, given another week, reduce the size of this building, all the rooms in it, by 50% to maybe even 67%, down to a half or a third of their current size, because there's just so much empty space here. And I tried to put some things in the rooms just to give an idea of like what might exist, but even so, there's just so much empty space in this building. One of the things we can do is crouch, and so we're able to, I imagine this is sort of a stealth section, and it's a toggleable crouch as well. And something that took me a full day to work on is this interactive function where you can actually pick up objects and move them around. That was something that was actually very important to me, so I felt it was worth the time, because I really wanted to be able to do that for things like traversal puzzles or finding things. As you might be able to see if we pull this back, there is a grate hidden here. This was intended to be an entrance to a sewer system that went underneath the town. I ended up cutting that, but given another week, I would probably add that back in. Which leads into one of the points that I had about designing the levels, which was a soft rule that I had, which is that every room should have 3 entry points. And the reason for this was just to get me thinking about making the spaces interconnected, making them realistic, and making them entertaining. If it's just a bathroom with one entrance and no windows, that's kind of boring. It's okay for some rooms. Obviously, there's a locked door later where the only way is by getting through the locked door. You know, and it's okay if it's done intentionally, but generally I wanted to keep it so that there was about 3 entry points to any room just to give variety to the player. So as we see here, 1 door, 2 doors, 3 doors, and then this would have been a 4th. Moving on to this room, again, you get that same sort of design sensibility with 1 door, 2 doors, and originally there was going to be a vent up in this corner, which I ended up cutting because it was having issues with the player scaling or the size of the player fitting into the vent without clipping their camera through the wall, and just looking very wonky coming out of the building and things. This is sort of intended to mimic a table and chairs, just roughly. I also built it high enough that you can go through it, although the camera does clip, or you can go under it, but the camera does clip through as you walk, because your camera goes a bit higher when you're actually walking while crouched. This leads to a hallway, again, much longer than it needs to be. One thing here is, as I was building this out, replacing the initial pass with the actual assets, there was a mismatch in the wall spacing here. So I actually just increased it, put a pillar here, so that you can actually walk through it and use it as a sort of cheeky little entry point to this hallway. So it turned a bad design into a feature, and I kind of tried to hide it with a couple of trees, poorly hide it. Which actually led me to populating trees over there and throughout here, because if there's only 2 trees standing here in the whole level, it kind of immediately draws your eyes, like, why are there only trees here? So in order to sort of make this a little bit less obvious that there's something going on with these trees, I had to put more trees throughout the level. You cannot sprint. One thing you can do, though, which will come into Traversal later, is if you hold the right click down, it will give you this little prompt, which will teleport the player. So wherever you're looking at, if you let go, you teleport there. It is reminiscent of the blink ability from Dishonored, if you're familiar. This is far less refined. It's something I would like to do, given another week, is refine this further. And it was actually a good test in me of learning order of operations in some sense, because originally this little marker, and you can see it kind of jumps around, it wasn't updating on the tick. It was updating after some other things, or it was the new location for this little widget was getting set after a couple other things, so it was only updating every third to half second, and so it was super choppy. I ended up moving it, and then it helped fix the choppiness. It's still a little choppy, so I'd have to go back and look through that, but that is, it's much better than it was. And opening this door, we get into the main room. Again, absolutely massive, no need for this size. I tried to put some things in here that might be reminiscent of like bookshelves or something, just to give an idea of what might exist in this space. And we have stairs. And so this is kind of another example of the rule I was using, where you have... I'm not exactly counting each of these windows as a separate entry point, because they're on the same side of the wall as the door and on the same level. But, these windows over here are on a different level and on a different side of the room. These windows are on a different side and a different level, so from a different level from this entrance. So I count these as entry points, and because you can actually get through them with the teleport, although it is a little tricky when you're not on the same level. But there you go. You can do it. Coming up here, we have our first note of the game, so it actually reads out exactly what's on there. If you interact, it will pop up on screen the exact note. But there is a bug where it doesn't actually stop you from walking away, so you can just walk away with this on your screen, as I do many times, and if you click on another note, it will overlay both note text on top of each other. But I am actually kind of proud of this note, because it's a singular blueprint that each instance has its text exposed. So from within the level editor, you, without having to go into the blueprint, you can edit the text and see it update in real time, so you know if your spacing is good. But I did space it pretty well so that the actual text editor is almost a one-to-one for how it's going to be spaced out on the actual piece of paper. But this does also lead into a problem with my level, which is flow. Um, there's not a good sense of flow. That's something I would definitely work on given another week. And it created an issue here where you can see this door code is listed for a room that we haven't even found out is locked yet, giving the player the key before the door, which is a big no-no. So that's something I'd have to address, is placement and of different items and flow of the level and that sort of thing, because right now, if we go back to the beginning, we can see that, you know, we started about here, so it's not really a good idea of where you're supposed to go, and this door's not even open. So, you know, ideally the player would see the door and kind of go into this building first, but there's nothing that really directs their eye there, especially when your view is like this and you have this big open area right off to the side here where you can't even really see the door. But this is the outpost that note was talking about, and this is another example of like multiple entry points and me trying to cater to the player, where this isn't the only way to get in. These windows are open, so you can just pop in here. Oops, it does work, I swear. Okay, well, it's not working right now, but I've been able to do it. Oh, it's because of the sphere trace. So it's doing a sphere trace to determine if there's enough room for the player to get in. So the sphere is colliding with the ceiling and not letting me through the window. But I know you can do it. It's the same windows that work in that building. So it was just another avenue for the player to be able to get into this room. These doors work similarly to the notes, where each instance of the door has its door code editable. There's unlocked doors, which are their own blueprint, which are just the default doors where you tap them, they open, you tap them, they close, and they toggle that. These ones are built off of that blueprint, but then they have all the code for the door code to work. And so you can type in whatever code you want, and if it's not the right code, the door won't open. I'm spamming E right now. And then you just, you know, put in whatever codes you want, and it won't open until you put the right one in, which in this case is 1, 2, 3, 4. Once you put the right code in, the doors will open. And you can shut, and you can even put in more codes, but it doesn't matter because the door's unlocked now. So it doesn't matter if you put in the wrong code again, because it won't relock the door. One thing I would like to do is add some effect to the widget to sort of give the player an idea that they're actually interacting with it or something's happening. Add some like a flashing red text or a flashing green text so they know the code was right or wrong. But we come in here, and this is just a little bit of flavor, just for some environmental storytelling. It's not, it doesn't have any pertinent information to getting through the level. Coming here, we see, let me just step all over these bodies. This is, again, it's kind of just an environmental storytelling, but it's also useful because Bella by the flag, which can be visible from here, it should be visible throughout most of the level, does have something that's useful for the player. So this was an example of me trying to direct the player, so you see, okay, there's something by the flag, okay, and so hopefully players then explore that building to get to the flag. Alternatively, you can just teleport up, but I wasn't going to try and prevent the player from doing that if they decide that's how they want to explore. That's fine, especially because I would like to add AI into this given more time, and so that might even be a safer option than going through this building where you're not sure what might be in it. This building is sized appropriately, so this is the size I would want the rooms to be, and this was intended to be a larger room. So I did fix my scaling mistake by the time I got to this building. And then we have stairs here, which the floor got a little wonky, so there are some gaps. Um, but hopefully the player would explore this building after seeing that okay, there's something interesting, this flag is a point of interest, and seeing this locked door, which the objective for the level is behind this door. I didn't code in yet the actual objective, but that is something I would also add, and so I would add a marker of like, hey, this objective is here, and then you see, oh, it's behind this door, but I don't know how to get in yet. So that was a little bit of me trying to direct the player. I like this building because every level is different in its architecture. You see in the original level this hallway extends and there's another room. So this level is, more condensed, but it's just different. It's not that it gets more and more condensed and there's no storage room at the end of this. So it's not that it gets more and more condensed, but it's that each level has its own kind of unique geometry, so you don't just get a very blocky building. It's a little bit more interesting visually. So if we come back down here, you can see it's got a little bit of an interesting shape to it. It's not just this wall isn't extended out to be level with this wall and just creating this very block rectangular sort of look. Coming up here again, it's another instance of giving you a door code before you find the door, but that goes to this building, and I will just skip the door entirely. Oops. And this one, what is it, 5-2, oops, 2, oh, shoot, 5208. This one is locked on the outside as well with the same code, and then this has the door code for the last room, which it tells you, oh, that's your objective. If there was the objective coded, you would be looking for the explosives, and here it says, oh, there's explosives in the storage room, so it confirms what you would know. But yeah, if we come in here, we will see, oops, come on, that yes, this door is also locked with that same door code, 5208, where we just were. And then of course coming back here, it's the classic door code, if you saw on the note, 0451. And then right now it's just set to destroy itself, but it's another type of interactable. And then you can also move these. So yeah, that's pretty much all there is to say that I can think of at the moment. It's pretty simple, but it was just for me to test out implementing new mechanics and trying my hand at some level design sensibilities. It's not perfect, but it was the first time I've ever done anything like this, and I only spent a week on it. So, again, obviously there's a lot of refinement, I know that, but it's just sort of an example of, what, there we go, what kind of ideas I have, or that sort of thing. So, I hope this was mildly interesting to you, at the very least, and thank you for watching if you did. I really appreciate it, and I hope you have a good one.